If Apple messes up the iPhone 17e, Android doesn't just win this year, it wins the next 5 years of the smartphone war. That might sound like an overstatement, but if you zoom out and look at the numbers, it's exactly where things are headed. Right now, Android absolutely dominates the global smartphone market in terms of units sold. Not at the ultra-premium iPhone $200 flagship level, but where it actually matters, the budget and mid-range segment. That $400 to $700 price range is where most people in the world actually buy their phones. In countries like India, Indonesia, Brazil, and even large parts of Europe, people aren't buying $1,500 flagships every year. They're buying smart, value-packed phones that give them the best experience for the lowest possible price. And in that arena, Android brands are fighting like crazy. Samsung, Xiaomi, Redmi, Realme, Vivo, Oppo, and even Google, with its Pixel A series, are shipping incredibly competitive Android phones with big batteries that easily last a full day-high refresh rate displays that feel smooth and modern, surprisingly good cameras for photos and video fast charging, feature-rich software, and 5G support, and most importantly, aggressive, affordable pricing. All of this makes Android the default choice for millions of first-time smartphone buyers and budget-conscious users. That's how you build market share. That's how you lock people into your ecosystem. And that is exactly where Apple has been lagging behind. Now, yes, Apple still controls the majority of smartphone profits. Apple makes more money per device than almost anyone else, but high profit doesn't automatically equal long-term dominance. What really builds power in this industry is unit share. How many people are actually using your phones? More users mean a stronger ecosystem. More users mean more developers build for your platform first. More users mean more accessory makers, more services, more lock-in. And that's why the iPhone 17e might be the most strategic iPhone Apple has launched in an entire decade. For years, Apple's budget iPhones have felt like leftovers. Slightly older designs, older chips, recycled parts, and very predictable, safe spec sheets. Good phones, yes, but not exciting enough to pull large numbers of Android users away from their current brands. But the rumors around the iPhone 17e tell a different story. Leaks suggest Apple is planning to use the same A19 chip found in the main iPhone 17 lineup, maybe with a few cost-saving tweaks. That means flagship-level performance in a more affordable iPhone. And that instantly turns the 17e into something far more dangerous, a weapon for market share. Because here's the reality no one talks about enough. Most Android users don't avoid the iPhone because they hate iOS. In fact, many of them actually like Apple's software, security, and ecosystem. They avoid iPhone because of one thing: price. When you compare a $700 Android phone with a $1,100 iPhone, it's hard for a lot of people to justify Apple, especially in price-sensitive regions. But if the iPhone 17C lands in that $500 to $700 sweet spot, suddenly the conversation changes. Imagine an iPhone with a modern design, not a 5-year-old chassis, a powerful A19 chip that can handle gaming, video editing, and heavy multitasking. Good main camera, reliable battery life, and a smooth display, decent storage for most users, and a price that competes directly with popular Android mid-rangers. At that point, millions of Android users around the world are going to stop and think, wait, maybe I can finally switch to an iPhone. And that tiny pause, that moment of doubt, is exactly what Apple wants. Because here's Apple's ultimate advantage. Once somebody switches to iPhone, they rarely go back. That's the ecosystem trap. And Apple has built one of the strongest ecosystems in tech. You don't just buy an iPhone. You slowly get pulled into iMessage and FaceTime for messaging and video calls, AirPods for seamless audio and instant pairing, Apple Watch for health tracking and notifications, iCloud for backups and photos, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus, and more. Suddenly all your photos, chats, purchases, and devices are linked together. Everything just works, and that convenience is incredibly sticky. That's why getting someone to buy their very first iPhone is such a critical moment for Apple. The iPhone 17e doesn't need to have titanium sides, a periscope camera, or every single Pro feature. It only needs to do one thing extremely well: deliver enough performance, polish, and value to make an Android user hesitate and seriously consider switching. Now, let's look at the bigger picture, the real business strategy behind this. If Apple can win even a small share of the global budget and mid-range market with the iPhone 17e, it doesn't just sell more phones for 1 year. It grows the total number of active iPhone users worldwide, and that is where the real money is. More iPhone users means more App Store purchases, more subscriptions to Apple services every single month, more sales of AirPods, Apple Watch, iPads, and max higher lifetime value from each customer. This is not about winning one product cycle. It's about expanding the ecosystem and securing Apple's position for the next decade. Some people worry that a cheaper iPhone might cannibalize sales of the more expensive Pro models. But from Apple's perspective, that's not the real risk. The real risk is losing a customer to Android entirely. If someone who was going to buy a $400 Android phone instead spends $600 on an iPhone 17e, that might reduce the need for them to buy the most expensive Pro model. But Apple just gained a new ecosystem user and will probably make far more money from them over 5 to 10 years than they would have from a single Pro sale. The iPhone 17e doesn't need to outsell the iPhone 17 Pro or 17 Pro Max. It doesn't need to be the best phone in the world. It just needs to slow down Android's growth in the mid-range segment, because that's where the volume is right now. And volume, at scale, turns into power. Remember, outside of the US and a few other wealthy markets, Apple is not automatically the first choice. In many countries, people grow up using Android as their very first smartphone because it's simply cheaper and more accessible. And once your first phone, your first photos, your first apps, your first memories are on Android, you're more likely to stay there. That's exactly what Apple wants to change with the iPhone 17e. The smartphone war in 2026 is not really about who can build the most insane $1,500 ultra-premium flagship with 10 cameras and space-grade materials. Those phones are great for headlines, but they don't win the global market. The real battle is in the $500 to $700 range, the smart value segment where price and performance have to be perfectly balanced. And that's exactly the battlefield where the iPhone 17e is expected to land. If Apple prices the iPhone 17e correctly, balances features smartly, and keeps performance extremely strong, it could completely reshape the budget and mid-range smartphone market. It could turn millions of Android users into first-time iPhone buyers. It could become the new default option for people who always thought iPhones were too expensive for them. But if Apple gets it wrong, if the price is too high, the specs feel outdated, or the phone seems like yet another recycled, cheap iPhone, then Android brands will keep dominating. They will continue to absorb first-time buyers in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. And those first-time Android buyers will turn into long-term Android users. So this isn't just another minor iPhone release. The iPhone 17e is about positioning. It's about who owns the next generation of smartphone users. It's about whether Apple can finally compete head-on with Android in the most important price bracket in the world. Positioning decides the future. And the iPhone 17e might be the phone that decides who controls the next 5 years of the smartphone market. Now why? Want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the upcoming iPhone 17e? Are you a first-time buyer looking for your next phone? If Apple nails the price and features, would you choose the iPhone 17e over an Android phone from Samsung, Xiaomi, or Google? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me which side you're on, Apple or Android, and why. And if you enjoyed this breakdown of the iPhone 17e and the future of budget smartphones, make sure to subscribe and stick around because there's a lot more coming. I'll catch you in the next one.